A man hijacks a plane, gets $200,000, and literally yeets himself into legend. Let's rewind to 1971. Bell bottoms were in, Nixon was president, and airline security basically didn't exist. Like you could stroll onto a flight with a suitcase full of mystery and a plan worse than your ex's tattoo idea, and nobody would stop you. Which is exactly what this one guy did. He walked into Portland International Airport on the day before Thanksgiving, bold choice considering that's already a nightmare travel day, wearing a suit, a trench coat, and the chill confidence of someone who definitely packed more than just socks. This mystery man bought a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper, which sounds like a fake name made up on the spot. Like, Dan, Cooper? Perfect, totally believable. Nobody questioned it. Flight 305 was a short hop from Portland to Seattle, a 30-minute flight. Basically the aviation version of ordering delivery instead of walking 2 blocks. But Mr. Cooper? He had different plans. Once the plane took off, he casually handed a note to the flight attendant. She did what anyone working customer service does when handed something unexpected. Assumed it was a phone number and tried to ignore it. But Cooper leaned in and whispered something you don't want to hear at 10,000 feet. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." "Okay then, Dan." Now, at this point, you'd expect panic, screaming, or someone tackling him with an in-flight meal tray. Nope. The 70s were built different. The flight attendant took the note to the captain, and the airline crew calmly, like way too calmly, followed Cooper's instructions. Because this wasn't a guy waving a weapon and making wild demands. No, Cooper was polite, relaxed. Sipping a bourbon and soda like this was just his usual Wednesday vibe. Honestly, if he hadn't said the word bomb, he probably would have gotten an upgrade. He demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in unmarked bills, which, adjusted for inflation, is roughly the price of a downtown parking spot today. The airline and the FBI were like, "Okay, sure. Would you like peanuts with that?" They gathered the cash, got the parachutes, and delivered everything to him in Seattle, where the plane landed just long enough for Cooper to swap the passengers for his money and weirdly specific skydiving gear. Then, and I cannot emphasize this enough, he asked the pilot to take off again. With just a skeleton crew, 4 parachutes, and 1 man holding a drink and a dream. Where was he going? The wilderness. Why? Because apparently, this man watched one too many spy movies and thought, you know what would make a great escape? Jumping out of a commercial plane in a thunderstorm? And here's the kicker. He did. Mid-flight, somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, Mr. Cooper lowered the rear stairs and literally jumped into the night. With the cash, with the parachutes, and with absolutely zero follow-up. So, just to recap, Dan Cooper, or DB Cooper, thanks to a media hypo that stuck harder than your grandma's lasagna to Tupperware, jumped out of a Boeing 727 with a parachute and a bag of cash, and absolutely no backup plan. Seriously, no getaway car, no accomplice waiting in a clearing, not even a handwritten note that said BRB, reinventing sky crime. He just vanished. Naturally, the FBI was not thrilled about this. I mean, this was a whole airplane hijacking in broad daylight. And the guy didn't even take a hostage or mess up the carpet. He just politely sipped his drink, made his demands, and exited like a weirdly chill action hero. Q. One of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. The FBI threw everything at this case. Helicopters, search dogs, probably a few agents who were like, did anyone try looking under the plane? The search focused on a patch of rugged forest land near the Columbia River, which is code for, he could literally be anywhere. But here's the kicker. Not a single trace of him was found. No parachute, no body, not even a rogue shoe. It's like he jumped into a parallel dimension where sky criminals just get away with stuff. And the name, DB Cooper? That was a random guy in Oregon who had nothing to do with this, but his name got printed by mistake in the early news reports. The actual ticket said Dan, but DB Cooper just sounded cooler, like you don't rob a plane and call yourself Dan. That's the name of your uncle who grills too much chicken. But DB Cooper? That guy gets a Netflix deal. Meanwhile, the public went nuts. He became a folk hero overnight. T-shirts, songs, conspiracy theories. Probably a few people who tried the same thing with worse results and significantly fewer parachutes. The FBI spent years chasing leads, interviewing everyone who had ever owned a parachute or looked suspiciously aerodynamic. But the longer the investigation dragged on, the colder it got, and the cooler D.B. Cooper seemed. Even when, in 1980, a young boy found $5,800 in decaying $20 bills buried near the Columbia River, bills that matched the ransom money, all it did was make things weirder. Like, was this hush money for a squirrel? A tip left for a cryptid? Nobody knows. And the mystery only grew. So now we've got a polite sky pirate, $200,000 in missing cash, and an entire government agency pacing like it lost its car keys in the woods. Naturally, the theories started flying faster than the actual plane. Theory number 1, he didn't survive the jump. Look, it was night. It was raining. The terrain below was a lovely combo of trees, rivers, and regret. He didn't even steer the parachute, just sort of yeeted himself into the void and hoped for the best. Experts said it would have been almost impossible to survive, which, to be fair, is also what people said about pineapple on pizza, and look how that turned out. But here's the thing, no body, no parachute, no broken bones just lying around in the forest like a warning sign. So, if he did go splat, nature cleaned it up faster than a cat knocking something off a shelf. Theory 2, he survived and just blended in. Like, hey Bob, who's the new guy at the hardware store? Oh, that's Dan, quiet fella, likes cash. Some people even claimed their uncles were D.B. Cooper. One woman swore her husband confessed on his deathbed. Another guy straight up wrote a book called I Am D.B. Cooper, which is bold considering that's not something you want to casually admit while filing taxes. And yes, the FBI checked them all out. They ran DNA tests, polygraphs, handwriting analyses, which, let's be honest, is the most 70s detective move ever. This loop on the lowercase y? Totally criminal. Then there was the guy named Richard McCoy, a literal hijacker who did almost the exact same thing 5 months later. Plane, parachute, ransom, exit stage sky. The FBI thought, bingo, got him! Except McCoy looked different, acted different, and was already in prison when they found the money in 1980. So unless he was teleporting from a cell, probably not him. At one point, the FBI had over 800 suspects. That's more suspects than calories in an airport sandwich. And after decades of digging, theorizing, and chasing parachute-shaped shadows, the FBI officially closed the case in 2016. Just packed it up, dusted off their hands, and said, well, that was something. D.B. Cooper became the criminal version of Bigfoot, blurry, mysterious, and weirdly fashionable. Now, let's talk legacy. Because if you're going to hijack a plane and disappear forever, you might as well do it with enough flair to make history textbooks slightly confused. D.B. Cooper, or Dan, or Skyman, or whatever you want to call him, didn't just commit a crime, he launched a cultural movement. TV shows? Check. Documentaries? Please, we're up to our necks in them. Conventions? Yep. There's literally an annual CooperCon where people gather to argue about who jumped, where he landed, and which uncle is most suspicious. This guy has more fan theories than the finale of Lost, and honestly, fewer plot holes. And the best part? Everyone wants to believe he got away. He's like the underdog criminal who broke the rules, but used good manners while doing it. No weapons fired, no injuries, just a guy, a drink, and a dramatic exit. He's become the patron saint of petty rebellion. Don't like your job? Be like Cooper. Tired of capitalism? Take the cash and skydive. Warning, please don't. Warning. Meanwhile, the FBI, not thrilled to be outwitted by a man whose entire outfit screamed department store clearance rack, spent 45 years trying to close the loop. They even released age progression sketches. Because sure, maybe a gray-haired D.B. Cooper is just chilling in Florida, still wearing that clip-on tie. Let's not forget the money mystery either. Out of $200,000, only $5,800 ever turned up, buried in a sandbar and found by a kid digging around with a stick. Because apparently treasure maps are real if you believe hard enough and ignore your homework. The rest? Still missing. Either burned, buried, or spent slowly on groceries and motel rooms by someone who knew how to lay low before Google ruined anonymity. But the real kicker? Nobody hated him. The media didn't demonize him, the passengers weren't traumatized. Even the FBI gave off, fine, you win. Energy toward the end. In a world of messier, louder criminals, Cooper was oddly neat. Like a polite ghost who took your plane, grabbed some cash, and disappeared with a wink. By this point, Cooper wasn't just a fugitive. He was folklore. And America? Oh, we love our mysterious outlaws. Especially when they come with a solid wardrobe, a catchphrase. I have a bomb, yikes, but iconic. And the vibe of a guy who probably listens to jazz and plays poker alone. Let's take a second to appreciate the efficiency of this operation. He hijacked a plane, without yelling, negotiated calmly, while sipping bourbon, jumped out, in a business suit, and somehow managed to inspire decades of debate, documentaries, and one truly weird Halloween costume trend. To this day, you can buy a D.B. Cooper action figure, which raises some questions. What does it come with? A tiny parachute? And a microscopic bag of fake 20s? What's the play scenario? Hijack your own flight today, kids! Cooper also became a pop culture Easter egg. He's referenced in Loki, Prison Break, Leverage, and about 100 other shows that love a good, mysterious man-in-suit trope. Even Mad Men fans once floated the theory that Don Draper was D.B. Cooper. Because yes, that's the level of crossover conspiracy we're working with now. And speaking of theories, you could fill an entire crime library with the amount of speculation around this man. Amateur sleuths have spent literal decades on YouTube explaining how the jump was possible, how the money might have been laundered, and how their barber's cousin's mailman might have been in on it. One guy even used 3D modeling and wind simulations to determine exactly where Cooper could have landed. Spoiler, it's still forest. Meanwhile, seasoned agents and forensic experts are left going, cool, cool, we got nothing. The parachutes? Gone. The bag? Gone. The man? Not even a blurry photo to cling to. It's like he hopped out of a plane and into witness protection with Bigfoot and Elvis. So where does that leave us? With a legend and a lingering question mark. Because while Cooper technically committed a federal crime, he did it so smoothly, people can't help but admire the audacity. And honestly, not a bad legacy for a guy whose biggest weapon was confidence and a carry-on. All right, time to land this plane. It's been over 50 years since a man in a tie calling himself Dan Cooper took a seat on Flight 305, ordered a drink, and rewrote the rules of sky crime. He didn't scream, he didn't hurt anyone. He just handed over a note, requested some parachutes like it was a casual Amazon order, and pulled off the cleanest getaway in aviation history, assuming he survived, of course. And that's the thing. We don't actually know if he survived. Maybe he broke both ankles on impact and got adopted by a family of raccoons. Maybe he strolled into a bar the next day, dropped some unmarked bills on the counter, and said, "You wouldn't believe my commute." Or maybe, just maybe, he was the guy behind you in line at the bank last week, quietly withdrawing a crisp 20 from a savings account marked air miles. But here's what makes this story stick. It's not just about the crime. It's about the vanish. We live in a world of security cameras, GPS trackers, and 10 million TikToks a second. The idea that someone, anyone, could pull off a crime of this scale and then just disappear, it's kind of thrilling. It's the perfect cocktail of chaos and charisma. And maybe that's why, all these years later, D.B. Cooper still has fans. Not because people love crime, but because sometimes, deep down, we all love a good mystery. And this one? It boarded a flight in 1971 and never really landed. Don't try this at home, or anywhere, really. Thanks for watching, and remember, if your getaway plan involves bourbon, 4 parachutes, and blind confidence, maybe rework step 2. Catch you in the next one, where someone definitely makes even worse decisions.